Today, I will be talking about a public health crisis of an aging prison population. It is widely known that the United States has a very large prison population. What is happening with older adults in the prison system, and what are the hardships being faced? The question we ask is what is happening? The adult prison population is aging at a rapid rate, and with this aging population, we are faced with a public health crisis. To understand what we need to do with this large growing population, because as that prison population starts to grow, there's more medical costs to be experienced by these elder prison inmates. That is when we need to evaluate whether the risk of resolving this issue is worth taking if it means we can combat the crisis of a rising medical cost experienced by everyone in the community, not just the prison community. So as we move on, we start to identify that there are younger inmates that are receiving prison sentences that are much longer, causing inmates to age in prison for longer periods of time, according to Mara from a 2002 journal. Now, harsher punishments seem to be being handed out across the board. A journal entry in Modern Health addressed the breakdown of this prison population. In 2008, there was more than 1.4 million males in state or federal prisons and about 105,300 females. Nearly 150,000 male inmates were at least 50 years of age, and about 15,800 were at least 65 years of age. Now, of the females, it was nearly 8,700 were at least 50 years old, and 600 were at least 65 years of age. Now, the prison population continues to grow, and the big question is, what do we do with such a large population of elder individuals in the prison system? First, we have to identify what is being experienced. Now, in a journal of social work, they separate adult prisoners into two groups, one being geriatrics and the other being non-geriatrics. They describe geriatric inmates as prisoners who need a lot of assistance with activities of daily living, such as eating, bathing, and using the bathroom. These inmates typically need to be housed in a separate part of the prison because they need more individual care and more physician monitoring to maintain good health. Now, non-geriatric inmates are those who may struggle with health issues or even some mobility issues, but they're not dependent on a caregiver or physician in order to perform activities of daily living or to just maintain good health. So, with that, a study in the Journal of Urban Health identified that 18.8% of inmates have hypertension, 5.4% have asthma, 4.2% have diabetes, 1.7% has ischemic heart disease, less than a percent have chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, about 0.25% have cerebral vascular disease, accumulating a total of about 24.5% of the population that was studied had one of these diseases at least. That's according to a 2010 article in the Journal of Urban Health. Now, that is nearly, could potentially a quarter of elderly prison inmates dealing with some sort of chronic disease, which can only lead to inflating costs. So now we move to address the social, emotional, and cognitive issues being experienced by these inmates. Now, according to Lemaire in a 1996 study, the sense of self has diminished in a lot of prison inmates due to not having personal possessions or privacy. And as that sense of self diminishes, you start to see a loss of cognitive development. Um, and that's going to hinder their ability to understand more complex issues or ideas. Now, Dupre, in a recent text from 2017, says that one way to help kind of combat the loss of uh, cognitive development is to utilize skills like motivational interviewing when talking with inmates, to kind of understand and meet them where they're at and help them process through advantages and disadvantages of certain options. Doing so can also help kind of spark that a little bit of cognitive development and uh, possibly lead to an improvement of their emotional and cognitive state, allowing to improve overall health and well-being. So then we need to focus on the actual medical treatment and issues. Dupre also identifies that collaborative medical communication involves participants and proactive desire to treat each other as peers who openly discuss health options and make mutually satisfying decisions. Unfortunately, due to just the natural power imbalance and differential between a prison inmate and a physician, it falls more of the traditional sense of healthcare rather than a more collaborative approach. Um, the traditional sense being the physician um, more makes a decision and the inmate follows the directives and orders, with the kind of removing what would be more satisfying of a decision for the inmate, and just kind of being told this is how it is rather than working together on a more level playing field. And because of that, um, we decided we need to take a hard look into identifying ways to rectify this current issue facing our public health. Um, One being public health workers need to work to inform and identify possible solutions. One being there's talk of uh, doing a medical release for some of these prisoners who are supposed to remain in prison for the rest of their life. Obviously, be prisoners who have demonstrated good behavior and are deemed not to be a risk should they be released. So there needs to be a conversation and a lot of a continuous conversation. And that's where the risk communication comes into play, where you need to talk about, is the risk of worth the reward? Is it worth releasing an inmate who was sentenced to life in prison? Is it worth the risk of releasing them if it means we can possibly save large sums of money on their healthcare that they would, in other words, require in prison, which is obviously going to be more strict and uh, more individualized and supervised, which means it's going to cost more. So that's just one issue that needs to be evaluated. But it all stems from the fact that we need to start the conversations. There needs to be uh, some information revealed around uh, what could be the best possible outcome and what's worth the risk. So, as we said, public health workers need to inform communities about this issue. Um, and they need to instill the fear of the idea that, money could possibly be seen as being wasted in the prison healthcare system on elderly inmates, and that it may be more cost efficient and cost effective um, to seek other options. So it's up to public health workers to really start spreading this wide set understanding and knowledge of an issue that hasn't seen much light. Uh, because that's where the idea of intersectionality from Dupre comes in. Uh, he states that human lives cannot be reduced to a single characteristic, and goes on to say that individuals are influenced by how these identities intersect within the context of the larger environment. Basically, saying that the inmate is not only defined by them being an inmate, they are a person who are experiencing many different issues and struggles, and it's those struggles that need to be made aware and that impact not just them, not just the prison community, but the community outside of the prison. Uh, Everyone involved is feeling the struggles of what is happening inside the prisons, because we are feeling the financial burden of having to pay for prison costs that we may be able to find more cost effective options to manage. And so the aging prison population isn't going to go away. It's only going to continue to rise. And so it is up to us to understand that the aging prison population is a burden that everyone must deal with together. So I hope this can start the conversation of understanding what we can do together to help resolve this issue that we're all experiencing. I appreciate your time. As you can see, we utilized a few different resources. We got some journals from social work and community and health, textbook, a journal of urban health, the Journal of Psychosocial Nursing and Mental Health, Journal of Aging and Social Policy, of Modern Healthcare and the Criminal Justice System. We utilize all those numbers to gain some of our talking points today. Hope this was informative. Thank you very much.